today's video, we'll be doing April's 30-30. If you don't know what that is, that's when every day in April you try to write 1 poem a day or 30 poems by the end of April. It's for National Poetry Month, which is this month. Yay! So one of the exercises of this month is going to come from Natalie Eilbert's Indictus. Natalie is a poet I know from New York City. She's a lovely human. She's lovely. I've taken a couple workshops with her. And this book is a heavy book. It deals with kidnappings and sexual assault that Natalie survived when she was younger, and then sexual assault when she was older as well. And she kind of weaves in these different threads of sexual trauma throughout this book, and it's really beautiful. I think one of my favorite aspects of Natalie's work is that she's from you want all the poets to be focusing on their language, but she's so exact, or she strives to be so exact in language in a way that's just really enriching. And she'll show you, I guess, the efforting in this book, especially of trying to find the right words for these things. So I'll go ahead and read the first part. The first part, I believe Natalie said that she added it last, right before this went off to publication. So she had all the other poems lined up in this collection, and then she added this last part as kind of a prologue to open up the book. So that's the part I'm going to be reading, and I think it will be an interesting writing exercise to go off of. To read poems is to follow another line to the afterlife. To write them is to wed with afterlife. You can see how Natalie places the poems on the page, so they're not in typical stanzas, they're more prose poemish stanza. Words are filthy, with themselves, with the past. If I jump around in my details, it is because I have willfully refused details in writing. I tell a friend I want to delete this whole book so that no one will see it, and he says I should hold on to that feeling. Poetry allows me to enter into the afterlife. Line after line, I find specific names, construct unknowing from malignant odes. But no, I don't want to be found personally. Let me say of language that it is my currency, and performs best when it is stripped of decorum. The word strip is better as a noun than a verb, not simply in a literal sense, but an etymological one as well. Strip. A long time ago, a boyfriend critiqued one of my violations, naming the event non-habitual. I was 7. I was 13, I was 14, I was 21, I was 23, recently. Details lock me into the violence of chronological events, but I refuse to let this be chronological. Chronology, too, is filthy. All these men specifically so. The cartoon of the crime, a man gauzed by hate moving inside the flattened surface of another's body, a shadow of a shadow. Even in the highest form of truth, to access memory is to blunder the event. Indict in its earliest use, exclusively meant to bring lawful charges against, but something marginalized groups know a lot about inserted itself. The language shifted to accommodate the reality of the court, not an action with punitive consequence, but a means to write, compose, or dictate a poem. It was left to the imagination of the survivor to alternate the course of events. At this point, poetry meant a fable or tale in verse. Indictus points to the unsaid. In this way, to indict is to write the unsaid. These are the men I imagine gone now. I envision a world where the men are gone who pulled language out of my mouth to push themselves in. Men who said what I could not speak. I push language back into the body I could never save, and I pull from the whole a roster. I take these specific men who saw no mind, who lacquered my body with the possessive, giving me only the failure of narrative, sentencing my life to verb. I take these men and I form them into the wound of a line. I allow myself the fantasy of the gone men, aware of what they've done. I fantasize what my own forgiveness might look like if I loosened their gaze. I reset the great books of our origins and vanish us all into the possibility of parable. I live in the gap of the verb of my life as I always have, and out of the blank of the gap of the verb of my life, I again present my men. In today's exercise, you can do a few different things that Natalie is doing. So consider, from a form standpoint, consider maybe a long title and then doing prose lines, so you're not moving in typical fashion. You can list, as she does when she lists the ages of her violations. You can play with doing lines on singular pages, not singular pages, lines and singular lines, essentially, compared to like stanzas. So just single stanzas. And then you can do different sections. This one we'll be doing an exercise for 15 minutes. As another component that you can think of, what Natalie is doing here is really pulling threads of different events under this umbrella. It's an introduction to this story she's sharing, or these stories she's sharing with the overlapping details. You can think of this maybe as an introduction, or you can think of this as a vehicle for pulling similar threads of stories. So it might be helpful to think of, or to list at the top of the page, maybe like 5 things that are similar, maybe 5 memories, and how do they all connect is one thing you can explore in these prose stanzas. How do they connect and disconnect? And some of the other elements that Natalie writes in this piece, she talks about language a lot. She talks about specific words. Filthy comes up, indict, or words themselves are filthy rather. Chronology is another word whose meaning she talks about. And the naming of things in general. The ex-boyfriend who critiqued one of her violations, naming the event non-habitual. How do you define what happens, whether it's traumatic, whether it's not traumatic, whether it's just, part of the mundane? What words do we give to our stories? So you can be as playful or as serious as you want in this. Obviously, we're moving from a very sensitive piece into this exercise. But yeah, we'll just go ahead and dive in. She's an amazing poet. At the end of this, I'm gonna link to her books so you can buy them if you wish to. It's always really lovely to support modern poets when you can, especially when their work is as beautiful as Natalie's. Remember, as always, there's no right or wrong way of doing this exercise. We're just gonna freely write for the next 15 minutes. I'm gonna see where I put my phone so we can do that. I found it. All right, so 15 minutes. Oh, perfect. We're at a 20 mark. Nice and easy. Alright, that was perfect. I came to a chill conclusion. That was 15 minutes. Yay, we did it! What I wrote went a really weird direction. I ended up just writing kind of an associative work about ribs. Like different ribs culturally and food-wise and anatomy-wise. And it's probably one of my weirder free writes, but that's the joy of a free write. You get some strange things sometimes. So please let me know in the comments how your prose pieces went. Were you able to write a full poem? Did you enjoy the writing exercise? Did your poetry align with more serious content like Natalie's, or did you go a lighter route? I would love to hear how things went. If you guys want to share any lines from your work, feel comfortable with that, feel free to do that as well. I will also link Natalie's book in the comments below, and hopefully, well, she has multiple books, so I'll try to link as many of her books as I can find online. And if you guys want to support her work, please do so. As I said, she's a really wonderful poet, and she has a lot of beautiful pieces. And I hope if you dive into her work, you enjoy it. And that's kind of the spiel. Yay, we did it. And stay tuned for the next 30/30 video.